This video is about creating new tasks in LedgerTasks. The tasks are really the core of the whole system. And so let's take an example here of you want to set a task, a recurring task, a monthly task of reconciling banks and credit cards. The due date, and we'll add for last month. And then we're going to add in a due date. So let's say that's the 15th of September. And we can set this as recurring as well, which is a very powerful feature. So you can recur every day, week, daily, no weekends, month, semi-monthly, year, and so on. So in this case, we want to do it every month, and we want to do it on or about the 15th of the month. So we'll save that as a repeating. And now you can see by this gray box here, it says task is recurring, and that means it is recurring, and you can see that easily whenever you edit or work on the task. Type of task, we haven't set those up yet, but you can set those up according to how you want. It could be a bookkeeping task, it could be administrative task, it could be CFO task, so it could be all sorts of things. Here we have it assigned to the user, Bob Newman, and we're going to select the customer here, and this is the customer that we set up in the last video, 123 Electric Contractors. Estimated hours to complete, this is what you guess it should take to complete. So let's say you say, well, this is pretty complex. They have lots of banks and credit cards to reconcile, so let's say it might take 3 hours. Okay. And the last box is only to be selected if there's a project. Now, the projects we'll talk about later, but a project is a collection of tasks, particularly useful if you're using a bunch of tasks that are farmed out, if you will, to different people in the firm. You could have local workers, you could have remote workers. And so now we go on to look at subtasks. If there are no subtasks for this, we can leave it as complete and save it. But you might want subtasks, and I'll show you how this is done. So you can add a subtask. For instance, we'll add a subtask. Let's call it download statements from bank. And then another powerful feature here is that you can add in URLs, that is web addresses, to other things like documents. So for instance, let's say you're only doing this once a year. You might have forgotten how to do it. So you have a URL to a document that you have on Google Drive, for instance, and that'll bring you to that document. It'll tell you exactly how to do it. Go there. If you need to go to that client's particular bank to download the information, you can put that URL in here and then it'll show up. So you can then save this subtask, and you can see now that we have a subtask here called download statements. It is a percentage of 100% right now because there's only one subtask, but if we add another subtask, and we'll call it input data, it now splits it 50-50. Now let's say there's a third subtask, and that might be to bill the customer for this. And then we'll save that. Now it doesn't attribute any time to that. So you might want to change some of these around. You might say that's going to be 20% of the job. That's going to be 70% of the job, and this will be 10%. It always has to add up to 100%. Otherwise, when you go to save, it will give you an error message. You can change these at any time. So now we can save this. And if we save and close, you'll see that we now have this task in our task list. And you can go into edit it at any time just by clicking on it. It'll bring you right into it. You can close it again. You'll see that the due date is in red. That's because today is the 16th, and this was due on the 15th, so it's red. If it's due today, it'll be green. If it's due tomorrow or sometime in the future, it'll be in black. You can also run the task. So when you run the task, it will then show that it's running over here, and it starts a timer. And as that timer runs, and then you stop it and save it, if it's over 1 minute, it'll start to show in your time history, and it can also show in reports afterwards. So then you can go back, for instance, and you can run a report of the time spent on a particular customer, and you can figure out uh, if you're billing by time, for instance, you can charge them for that time, or if you're charging them value pricing or fixed pricing, you can then use that time and look at how much you're charging them and see that if you're charging them enough or not. So we'll just stop the timer here. There are other things in here too, like notes. You can add notes. There are messages where you can message other users in your system. If you have other users, you can um, message them through here, and then time history also. And so the time history is at 0 because it wasn't over a minute. This only records a minute or greater. So we only had several seconds in there. It shows who the user was, when they started working on it, when they finished working on it, and so on. So when this task is done, you can complete it now. So let's say you've downloaded the statements, but that's all you've done. You haven't inputted anything or built them yet. So if you close this, you'll see that in the progress bar here, you can see your progress. And so this is especially useful because sometimes you're working on a task and your client, your customer, has not provided all the information, but you have started working on it. So you can see that you've already started working on it. If you have employees working on it or contractors, you can see their progress as well. And that works also in the projects as well. So, so let's just go in one more time. So you can either inside here, you can mark it all complete quickly by either clicking off these checkboxes, or you can save and mark complete and close here. Or if we just go out again, you can also click this box for very quickly completing tasks and clearing them off your page here. The filters at the top of the page show that we're filtering just my tasks, not everybody's tasks. We're filtering just incomplete tasks. So for instance, if I click this as complete now, it's going to ask, are you sure? Say yes. And so it is showing, if we go to all tasks, we can see that the task that we just did is finished and complete. Because it was a recurring task, it created a new one for October the 15th. So now if we go back again to incomplete, say go, we see just the new task. And so the old task that we were working on is complete, and the new task is already to be worked on next month.